Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture on differentiating literacy instruction in your classrooms. This is an introductory lecture on the subject in the elementary classroom. So perhaps some of you already have a good deal of background and this will be more of a review for you. But this is at the introductory level. Okay, so let's begin then. Students' interests and abilities and motivations, as well as their background knowledge and prior experiences, their cultures and languages, their reading or writing achievements, all these things vary a great deal in your classroom. And yet, you have the tough task as the teacher of teaching everyone at the same time to try to make learning work for everyone. Therefore, teachers are asked to differentiate learning in the classroom. That is, one size doesn't fit all. So, you're supposed to try to find different ways into the same materials and same skills and same practices, as well as offer choices to students that make their learning more suited to their own interests or needs. There's a text that I've been recommending to you in this lecture series by Gail Tompkins. She lists 3 different ways to differentiate instruction. First, she says differentiating the content, differentiating the process, differentiating the product. I think that that's a really good list for you to remember. I can have different sorts of content, different sorts of processes, different sorts of products. All they're slightly different, right? It gives you a great deal of breadth and choice as a teacher as to what you would make available and as well as for your students. So example, you might have an adept student who might read a story silently to himself, whereas the teacher might read the same story aloud to struggling readers, right? You've got differentiated learning. Or whole class mini lessons on a novel or on skills, supplemented with other mini lessons that are tailored for small groups of kids that have special needs in each one of these situations, right? So different ways into the same material depending on what kids need, what kids are interested in. Some examples of ways to differentiate instruction, grouping for instruction. When it's best to teach to the whole class all at once, sometimes it is, but maybe not. Maybe you want smaller groups. When might small groups or group work and group instruction be valuable? And what activities are best for individual work, right? Maybe you don't want to have all whole class all the time, or all small group all the time, or all individual work all the time, but what is most suitable in the mix? Try differentiating activities in your classroom so students do a bit of each. Now, Tompkins offers some ideas on how to differentiate learning in the 5 different literacy programs that we've studied. She says, you've got whole group or whole class activities, small group activities, and individual activities. And these are the different types of literacy programs that she would have us focus upon, right? The basal reader programs, literature focus unit programs. You'll remember that those are, they can be focused around a specific author or a specific theme in literature or something like that. Or lit circles is where you actually have, different books being read by different groups of students in the classroom, right? Or reading workshops, right? Where, kids are focused on the aspect of reading, or writing workshops where they're focused on the aspect of writing. Maybe it's newspapers, maybe it's short stories, maybe it's comic books, something like that. But these are different programs, literacy programs, and here are some examples of whole class, small group, and individual activities that pertain to each one of those different literacy programs. Try offering lots of different sorts of texts to students. Maybe allow for kids to choose between a number of different books for their studies. Or if you have one book that everyone's reading, see if you can find a bunch of other books that somehow relate to it. And not just books, maybe there's art, maybe there's music or other things that you can think of that fit with that book they're reading. If you do a bit of legwork like this beforehand, you'll be helping the kids by hopefully playing to their interests and making the learning in your classroom more enticing to them. So, nice visit to the public library, right? That's a great place to start. Go talk to the librarian, ask for his or her advice on things that could be done. You've got the internet there, that's your tool. You can also use book talks as a way to introduce children to all the different titles they might be reading, right? What's a book talk? It's just you're introducing the book. They don't know what the book is. You're going to tell them a little bit about it. It might get their appetite wetter or get them excited to read that. Try something that's outside of their comfort zone. And then you display these books prominently in your classroom so the kids can look at them. Also, you can try to tier activities in the classroom. That is, you design activities so that they demand or invite higher or lower levels of difficulty and challenge. And don't just tier activities. Try to offer choice in the ways that students can engage in demonstrating what they know. For example, essays are good, but so are projects, posters, art, music, dramatic theater. Try to make sure that kids get a chance to be involved in all these different activities in your English language arts classroom. You might like to look at Howard Gardner's stuff on multiple intelligences to give you some ideas about differentiating instruction in your classroom, and think about learning styles or preferences and how these can inform your teaching. You'll find all kinds of stuff on learning styles on YouTube as well. Okay? And in your primary classrooms, you can also differentiate learning using literacy centers. This is where you create stations around your classroom in which the kids engage in various different activities. You can rotate them through these stations on a schedule, or you can leave it up to their choice as to which ones they'll do in the order that they want to do them. Maybe you'll use a big checklist on the board or something like that to keep track of who's done what. So here's an example of a organizational schedule in a kindergarten classroom, right? Here's an example from Tompkins textbook of a student checklist for choice rotation through various learning stations or learning centers. Look at that at your own time. They're learning there, it looks like, about social studies too, right? It's American. Tompkins provides a really good list of just some of the various sorts of learning centers or stations you could create and use in your classroom to differentiate instruction. Look at all the different learning centers or learning stations that she's suggesting here. You could find many more. Just go to YouTube. You'll see even examples of how to organize them. What can I do to help struggling readers or writers? Well, Tompkins tells us to watch out for kids in kindergarten and first grade who have a really hard time developing concepts about print. CAP, right? Phonemic awareness, learning letter names and sound symbol correspondences. We're also supposed to watch for when students can do these things, but it takes them way longer than other kids to do so. Also, we're told to look for behaviors that deviate from school norms. Additionally, Tompkins tells us other unsurprising things like ESL kids have it a lot harder than other students in school, and also that kids who come from families where parents struggled badly in school, odds are kids will have a harder time in school as well. So Tompkins talks about something called the 4th grade slump. Well, what's that? Well, it's a time in 4th or 5th grade when some children begin to exhibit problems with reading, whereas before they didn't. Lots of times teachers say this is because textbooks are beginning to be used more in these grades, and the writing in such textbooks is usually pretty bad or uninspiring. So that might be. But anyway, the 4th grade slump, right? Struggling readers or writers often have problems with developing, organizing ideas or word choice, sentence structures, or spelling and syntax, as well as the writing process and writing strategies. By the way, this is not a grade 4 thing, folks, necessarily. I taught high school, and this is a high school thing as well. Okay? Some students say that writing hurts their arm, their wrist, their fingers, etc. Actually, that happens in university. Sorry. Others have little or no interest in writing and avoid it at all costs. Well, that happens any age, really. Tompkins suggests that struggling writers need to be given extra opportunities to practice writing in order to build their confidence and to help them be more successful. She points to 5 components of our teaching that we can modify for them. What are these 5 components we can modify? Well, mini lessons. Try making up special or directed mini lessons just for your strugglers. Number 2, interactive writing. Students take turns writing words or sentences on chart paper, and the teacher reviews or monitors how they're doing, offering strategies for writing. Then students each make their own copy of the finished product. Number 3, daily opportunities to write. Give kids a chance every day to write and to develop stamina for writing. It's just like going to the gym. It's just like anything, right? If you don't use that muscle, it never develops. It atrophies. Same with writing. Writing every day. Reading every day. Practice, practice, practice. Try getting students to do reading logs for the books they're reading. Or maybe learning logs about the thematic units they're investigating in class. Reading logs are great because then you can see if they're trying different kinds of reading, not always reading the same kind of book, right? It's good to get more experience, more exposure. Number 4, conferences. Meet with the kid individually as much as you can. Get them talking about what they're learning and how they feel about things. So it's not just what their knowledge and skills are, but also their attitudes here, right? That's what you're going to get in a conference too. What are your attitudes? What are your feelings about this? What's one important thing you've learned about writing? What part of writing is easy for you? What part is hard? How do you decide when to change something in what you're writing? What would you like to learn next? Helping them learn to set their own goals, right? Do you think of yourself as a good writer? Why? Why not? Number 5, daily opportunities to read. Give them a chance to read books at their own level, as well as listen to you read to them from books that are above their level, so they can broaden their horizons. Tompkins gives us a series of charts that offer some valuable suggestions or tips about what we can do to differentiate instruction in a way that helps struggling writers with all their various challenges. So here's another handy dandy chart for us to look at from Tompkins' text. So I'll leave that with you here. You can pause it. You can notice how she's got concepts about print, alphabet knowledge, phonemic awareness, decoding, fluency, and there's specific problems here that she's isolated with each one of these things, right? And then solutions for those problems, right? If this comes up, try this as a solution. This is really good, folks. Tompkins' text, it's expensive, but it's well worth purchasing if you're looking to have something to keep with you that will help you throughout your early years as a teacher. And there's some continuation of it to do with vocabulary, comprehension problems, study skills, right? Here's a problem that a student, you've identified with a student. Here's some solutions to that. Here's some potential solutions, right? Ways to address struggling writer problems, right? Ideas, organization, word choice, writing processes. All right, so this would help you not just with, elementary age students, but I think a lot of this would actually help you if you were teaching in a junior high or a high school situation too. More, right? On mechanics, on motivation, different things that you can offer students. So here you are, you're doing your diagnostic assessments, you're finding that in mechanics, composition is difficult to read because of misspelled words. What are some strategies? What are some formative things that you can help or you can offer to a student to help him or her, right? There's a nice bulleted list of different things they might try or you might try with them. Okay, some more work on working with struggling students, things on scheduling, grouping, reading materials, instruction, so forth. All right, well, lots to consider there. Lots of resources for you, lots of ideas, hopefully things that you'll keep in mind for when you are meeting real students, encountering their real challenges and difficulties. These long lists, these indices that or charts that people like Tompkins and Flint offer in their texts are of great value to you. Their books are available on Amazon. I'd highly recommend either of those authors as good reference texts for you. Thanks for listening.